Hey there everyone, and welcome to this introduction to PHP Monitor. My name is Nico, and I've built this thing and I've been maintaining it for a while, and I've been wanting to make a video on it, but I haven't had the chance to do so, but here I am. So the plan is for there to be two videos. The first one, which is an introduction to the application for everyone who doesn't know how it works and why it works the way it does. And then a second video, which is a deep dive into the Swift code, which I think is going to be great for those of you who want to know how it really does everything. So let's get started with the initial story, right? So why did I build PHP Monitor? Well, there's a kind of an interesting story here. When I first built the first prototype for PHP Monitor, I did so as a simple menu bar app that just showed you which version was linked, like right there in the menu bar, right? Version 7.4, or maybe 7.0, or maybe 5.6, God forbid, right? And the thing is, I did that because I was working on two projects at the same time that basically needed to be migrated from one to the other. So we had an old code base running on PHP 5.6, and it needed to be ported over to 7.3 or 7.4 at some point. I think it was like 7.3 or 7.2 even, so it was a while ago. But doing that and constantly having to change in the terminal, like which version was active, was annoying, and I would then like do the requests in the browser and I'd be like, oh shit, that's right, I'm on the wrong version of PHP. And I mean, we looked into Docker, but the overhead of Docker at the time on Intel Macs was just, tremendous, and, the fans would be blowing right away and my computer would be loud. And then, with all the IDEs and the streaming applications and everything that we need to do our work open, it would just be bad performance basically. So that overhead of running Docker containers, unfortunately, was not something that I was willing to tolerate. And I knew of Valet, so I was like, I'm going to keep using Valet because it gives me great performance. So the biggest thing that PHP helps you deal with is the time wasted on local PHP configuration, right? So Valet is amazing. I love it. It's so good. But for beginners, it can be kind of tough to manage because there's no GUI, right? Beginners need GUIs, and even pros need GUIs because glanceable information is so powerful, right? So here's a bunch of questions that I asked myself when I was using Valet before I had my tool, right? Like, which version of PHP is linked? Especially in a multi-PHP version world where you have maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 versions linked, or maybe even all of them, right? You're probably going to the terminal and asking yourself, okay, so php-v, right, to find out what the version is of the currently linked, version of PHP in Homebrew. Where can I find those config files again is another question I'd ask myself frequently, right? Why am I bumping into memory limits? What is my memory limit right now? Is it like the default, or is it 1 gig? Or, I thought I upped it, but maybe that was on that other PHP install, right? But not on this one. So, okay, I'm bumping into memory limits. How big is my memory limit really, right? And then this one, right? Also fun. Per installation of PHP, you have a set of extensions that are enabled for that installation. It's not shared, right? So if I install an extension like Xdebug for one version of PHP, let's say version 8.0, that can work. But then if I switch back to 7.4, that might not be installed, or a different version, or disabled, right? So what's going on? Which are enabled, which are installed? How do I find out, right? Well, you can find out by going into the terminal again, but again, not glanceable information. Where's my configuration folder for Valet? Sometimes I tend to edit the Nginx configuration files myself to, change some stuff basically. And I need to find the configuration folder in order to be able to do that. Or this one, where's the global composer file? Now you know where it is, if you've done it enough. But again, it's way easier to have it glanceable, or at the very least, if I can press a button and it just shows me the file, right? Or shows me the configuration folder. Or this one, right? PHP info, can I see it for the currently active linked version of PHP? Sure, yeah, okay. So all of these features are effectively wrapped into a menu bar app, and that's PHP Monitor, right? So it shows you which version you're running, it shows you configuration access, memory limits, extension information, and it also allows you to restart the services, and there's even kind of a panic button that you can use to force load the latest version of PHP no matter what's happened to your homebrew setup. It will like kill all of the other services that you don't need, and it will only boot up that version of PHP that you need, and it will work, right? And then again, you can switch to a different version normally of PHP, but that is kind of the, oh no, I made a mistake somewhere, then you can use force load latest PHP version to fix that problem, basically. So all of this is very convenient, right? Let's talk a little bit more about, what's going on here. So this is a Swift app that uses Cocoa. Cocoa is kind of Apple's older macOS UI library, right? Nowadays, we're looking into Swift UI and technologies like that. And those are cool, but they're only supported by the very latest operating systems. So let's talk about the performance of PHP Monitor. So the end goal of PHP Monitor is to effectively be a background process, or like a background process. Sure, there's a little GUI up there, a little menu bar item that you can click on, but it has to use the lowest amount of memory and the lowest amount of CPU. And the only way to do that is to not use Electron, right? Which is a great solution for bigger, more complex applications that you need to be multi-platform, but this is a very specific solution for the Mac. So hence it was written in Swift. Now, because I'm supporting older versions of macOS, specifically 10.15 and up is supported, that means I can't use Swift UI. There's like a bunch of Swift UI experiments that I did at a certain point. And, maybe I'll rewrite the UI or some of the UI. Like the memory the view that shows you how much memory you've got free is like something that I could rewrite in Swift UI, for example. But altogether, I don't think it's a big deal. And it works reasonably well, right? So the other thing is that I want to kind of have maximum compatibility. There was someone who said, I have this old laptop and I'm doing this development and I really can't install the newest version because my laptop doesn't support it. Can you support this older version of macOS? And I said, yeah, I can, because I'm using Cocoa. I'm not using Swift UI. I'm using kind of really good rock solid technology at this point. So we can support all the way back to a certain version of macOS, right? Which is great. Now, before we can really begin with the code dive, which is happening next week or after next week, I'm not sure when I'm going to record it, we should look at how PHP works with Homebrew, right? And the best way to do that is to head into the system here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my Finder, and in my Finder here, I have the Homebrew folder. So usually on an M1 system, it's located under opt Homebrew. On non-M1 systems, you're going to find it under user, local, and then Homebrew, right? Now in here is kind of everything we need. So bin is the binary folder, and this is kind of interesting because if we ask our system, hey, which is the PHP binary, if you've configured it correctly and set it up right, then it should tell you that we're looking in opt homebrew bin. And if we go there and we search for PHP, which we can find here, and we are looking to find that original file because this is an alias or a symlink, then we will find that under the seller folder, which is where our binaries are at, right? Very cool, very nice. There's something else that happens with Homebrew specifically. It's kind of cool. So if you go to the opt folder, this is where you can kind of find the formula. So this way we can find out which versions we have. So this is PHP 7.4 and 8.0. And they link to the seller folder. So what happens is PHP Monitor will then scan the Homebrew opt directory to find out which folders exist here, right? And based on these folders, I can determine which versions of PHP are installed, show them to you, and then allow you to switch to them. But then because we just basically relink the version of PHP that we want to link, the binary effectively here in the Homebrew bin directory becomes the one that we select. So there's like nothing funky going on. I'm basically effectively just telling Homebrew to relink a different specific version of PHP, and then all the services get restarted, after which you get a little notification that, hey, we're done with this thing of changing the PHP version. And that's effectively a short story form of what the application does with Homebrew, right? So it's actually not too complicated. Now, of course, all of our configuration files and stuff like that are in different places here, right? In the Etsy folder, we can find a bunch of stuff like PHP files. Here's all the config files, right? But because we know which version is currently linked, we can immediately send you to the right folder, right? So the one, oh, you've got 8.0 linked? Fine, we'll send you to 8.0, right? And then we can send you there right away. It's really, really helpful. Or even these ini files, right? I can even tell you where an extension is enabled, right? Which is really cool. And of course, some values we read out, like the memory limits, so that they're shown immediately. All right, everybody, thank you for watching. If you haven't checked out the tool yet, you can find it on GitHub. Here it is. It's on nickverbruggen/phpmon. I'll have a link in the description. And there's a comprehensive README here that shows you kind of what the app does and how it works, as well as here's the installation instructions with a bunch of FAQ stuff, because there's some stuff that you might be running into. PHP Monitor does its best to kind of tell you what's going on, but sometimes might be confusing. So I've included these little collapsible sections that you can check out. So if you've got issues, you can solve them here. And then here's like a link to sponsor pages and acknowledgements to people who've helped promote it a little bit. And of course, you can always download the latest release. If you don't want to use Homebrew, you can use the releases section here and download it. There's always a comprehensive, kind of change log that I tried to maintain. And this latest release is 3.4, which fixed a bunch of issues that were found by a bunch of people throughout April, basically. And I think it's about as stable as you can expect it to be nowadays. So I'm pretty happy with the current state of the app. I'm looking forward and I'm hoping to make some more improvements and changes. You can find more about that in the issue list as well. So that's it for me. Take care, and I hope to see you next time with the deep code dive into PHP Monitor. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you then. Bye.